Darker Days Radio, episode number 34. Tonight I'm joined by Chris. How's it going, Chris?
Hi there. I'm okay, pretty good. Back from holiday, so feeling chipper. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm joined by Mark, of course.
Hi there, how you guys doing? It's the end of half-term holidays here, so I'll be glad when this is over.
And we're also joined by special guest, Dave Brookshaw. How's it going, Dave?
Very well, thanks, and thank you for having me.
Cool. Now, Dave is a White Wolf freelancer. He's worked quite extensively on Mage the Awakening, and he's also dabbled in Changeling and Vampire, as well as being a fan of all the World of Darkness games, I'm sure.
We've name-checked Dave enough times on the show that we thought we really had to have you on. Largely for your excellent actual play reports, which denizens of RPGNet and elsewhere will know, or by repute, if nothing else. So welcome aboard, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks again.
Cool. So what's been going on with everyone? Chris, you mentioned that you were just on holiday. You were in Venice, correct?
Yeah, I was there for about almost a week. It seemed to go by at some moments really fast and sometimes really slow because I've been there with my wife twice before, so we've kind of seen quite a lot of the major sites, so you don't have to run around like a lunatic trying to see everything in a few days. So we kind of, again, we're a bit more relaxed with things and got to kind of just like immerse ourselves in Venice again and kind of just explore some more bits. In particular, the public gardens weirded me out because I've never been to them before, yet featured them in my own Changeling games, and I didn't realise how close my own descriptions were to something that I'd never seen before. So,
spooky.
Yeah, a bit spooky.
Did you get to go to Poveglia at all, or have you been there?
You can't go to Poveglia. No boat goes to Poveglia. But we did go to the northern part of the islands, which is Canaraggio, at night to take a photo of the Casino degli Spiriti, which is the House of Spirits, which looks out across the lagoon to the cemetery island known as San Michele. So we've had a look at that. We've pretty much seen everything that I featured in my own Changeling game. So we found the lion that had its head chopped off. That appears in one of the secret frequencies we did, which covered that lion that got brought to life by a sorcerer. So yeah, numerous freaky things. We got dressed up, walked around, got photographed in costume, and yeah, just pizza and stuff and chocolate. And plenty of bloody coffee. And gelato, she says. Yes, plenty of gelato. So yeah, it's been good.
The best, yeah.
How about you? You said you had half term, so...
Yes, all three kids at home, which has been, less of a nightmare than you might expect. We've, me and the two eldest have been playing insane amounts of Xbox, mainly cooperative missions on Borderlands, which has been a huge amount of fun, actually. My two kids have become mean shots with sniper rifles. I had a truly hideous gig with my band last week, so for anybody who was at the King Billy in Northampton, I apologize. I'm really sorry. We won't do it again. And other than that, yeah, just kind of kicking back. Got a Pathfinder game coming up Tuesday, and there may well be a super advanced high-level Bulette, which I'm largely modeling on Jaws, a kind of land shark called the White Death, so that'll be kind of fun. Prepping for that, yeah. Other than that, not much.
Awesome. And Dave, have you been up to anything? Got any games going right now?
Games? Well, Mage, obviously. The eternally continuing chronicle, which several of your readers, maybe as many as 10, may have been reading about. I run a game of Eclipse Phase every week. I'm going to be running that tomorrow night. And then there are occasional things. There's a game of Dragon Age that gets about 3 sessions in a year. But,
that sounds like my Mage game.
Yeah, but other than that, my sphere of role playing is still very much. There's about 10 things which we would play if we had time to do. Some of them I would plan to run, some of the other guys would plan to run, and every now and again one of them kicks off. So, yeah, still very, very active. And then, well, pretty much every waking hour not spent at the day job is writing or playing. So, yeah.
It's a hard life.
It is.
Yeah.
It's terrible, terrible.
Coolness.
All right, awesome. All right, so we've got a lot of questions that are going to be coming up, and not too much time. So let's get started with. It's actually not in the show notes because I forgot to put it on, but the mailbag segment. So we did get quite a few messages since our last episode, and I totally didn't write them down, but let's see if I can remember. So Steiner sent us some secret frequency suggestions, so we definitely appreciate that. Adrian Stagg was asking us for advice on... Chris, you sent him an email about it.
Infernalism, wasn't there?
No, that was someone else.
That's the next one, sorry.
What was it about? It was something about, like, making, like, having difficult adversaries, despite, like, the supernatural creatures and, like, the player characters being so powerful to start off with.
Yeah, and was it balancing? It was maybe balancing out the power levels of your characters and knowing ahead. Yeah, obviously, I think, again, it's the normal trick of if you really want to... it was really just saying, again, the normal trick of if you want to shake things up for the players, make things more mysterious, don't, break the rules or add in something different. So I think that's what I remember from that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And then we also got an email about infernalism. And Chris, you were talking pretty extensively about that, especially because it was about Vampire the Dark Ages, or Dark Ages Vampire. And that's definitely something we should cover in the future, because we don't talk about the Dark Ages enough on this show.
No, it'd be good, because I played in a very long, a year-long chronicle of Vampire the Dark Ages, which was quite enjoyable. And of course, this all relates to infernalism, because in Dark Ages there's a lot of talk of about the differences between various heretical cults, and of course that's quite important when you're dealing with things like the Church of Cain and and various other cults within cults within cults, and it all gets rather complicated, and how that all relates to the numerous Christian cults and heretical cults at the time, such as the Cathars and the Elk, and the Bogomils as well. So, and of course, what came up in my email discussions with Shane on this about infernalism is, of course, how you can start looking at some of that from Dark Ages Vampire, and how it's actually really quite useful for Vampire the Requiem with the Lancashire Sanctum, because the Lancashire Sanctum has a lot to do with different creeds, and of course in my own games I've also introduced that into Vampire. So infernalism, it's cool.
Awesome, yeah. And for you mage gurus, there's a Sorcerer's Crusade supplement, Path of Screams, I believe, which deals entirely with this. I've heard very good things about that, but I don't really own any Mage Sorcerer Crusade books myself.
Well, it's interesting in that it was, if I recall correctly, Phil Brucato wrote it because he figured that if he didn't do it himself, that there would be an infernalism book come out sooner or later, and he wanted it, quote unquote, done right. And it does delve into the topic with a certain amount of enthusiasm. So it's certainly worth a look, and it has a fantastic cover too, which is what I always remember about it the most.
Cool. And I think that's just about it for the mailbag segment. So with that,
did I see a message on Facebook suggesting that we cover the Georgia Guidestones in Secret Frequency?
Oh yeah,
excellent.
Yeah, I told him that was in episode 2. He probably just hadn't gotten to that one yet.
That's quite acceptable. That's fine, but it's good topic.
Oh, definitely. Cool. And with that, let's move on over to White Wolf News. All right, so since our last episode, there's only been one product that's come out. And that is a Mage the Awakening book called Imperial Mysteries, out both in PDF and now in print. And somebody wrote that.
Yeah, I can't remember who. Malcolm Shepard and some other guy.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Nobody wrote it. It sprang fully formed
From the supernal.
Yeah, it was an entities practice. No one really wants to talk about it.
So Dave, I know we're going to be talking about Imperial Mysteries a bit more later on in the show, but would you like to just kind of give people a brief summary and get them interested in the book?
Okay, yeah. So throughout Mage the Awakening, ever since the core book, ever since the original practice descriptions in the core book, we've been teasing people about archmages, about mages who have gone beyond the levels of the arcana that are commonly known, who the first time the topic was really touched on, other than the core books, and at 6 dots you might be able to do this, was in Tome of the Mysteries, which is a very well received book, which had kind of a 3 or 4 page summary of the Archmage's deal, and people really liked it. And then Seers of the Throne touched upon that kind of topic in places, because the Seer Archmages were said in Tome of the Mysteries to still be part of their hierarchy, so we showed them. And it was the most fan-requested book in Mage terms. And so after a lot of turquoise Mage books, we finally get to Imperial Mysteries and reveal all of the secrets that we've been gleefully hinting at since Mage the Awakening came out. So you get to see the Supernal Realms, you get to see the High Arcana, you get mechanics for Ascension. Yeah, what more do you want? It is to Mage as Glories of the Most High is to Exalted. That's how I was always thinking of it when we were writing it.
Cool.
That sums it up perfectly, yeah. I was having a look through it today, and I can't think of much you've left out. So, given that you wrote it, I would be surprised if you had. Good stuff.
The other big news in the White Wolf verse is that they have a Kickstarter up for a deluxe V20 Companion. This
I'm
is
so
pretty
upset
interesting
about that.
because their goal is $50,000, and within like the first 2 days, they've already gotten like 20,000. So it's going pretty well so far. It's pretty interesting.
Up to almost 22,000. I just checked before the show.
Right. So it's slowed down a bit. I'm really excited about this. I think it's a very cool idea. One of the prizes, or one of the funding options, is that you can actually have a picture of you drawn in one of the books. So that's pretty cool. A lot of people are really excited about that. But I'm a little hesitant. I'm not sure if they should have gone with Kickstarter for this book, simply because it's a companion to a core book that's already come out. From the look of it, most of the people that are doing the funding are new users. They're White Wolf fans that have come on. It doesn't seem like there's many people that are already like in the Kickstarter community that are coming over and supporting this, because as I mentioned, it's a supplement. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I'm upset because I don't have the money to spare this month because I really like a copy. So I just have to console myself with the standard and non-deluxe. But I think it looks fantastic, and I'm interested in seeing. I take your point that it's for a companion. It's an interesting choice for a Kickstarter. I think if they can make it work with a companion book, then that certainly bodes well for using Kickstarter as a model for core books, and certainly with the amount of excitement that's circulating around the 20th anniversary editions, if this can help us, get, okay, I think Werewolf and Mage are fairly certain, but if this can help us get, for example, a Changeling 20th edition or a Wraith 20th anniversary edition through Kickstarter, then it gets a thumbs up from me for that. But I don't know if that's what they have in mind. I'm just speculating there. I like the option, though, that has Justin Achille running Vampire for you if you pledge whatever it was, $100,000 or something. I forget what the total was, but that could be fun.
All right, and the other thing I found out about is that there's other World of Darkness podcasts, and I was completely unaware of the OWbN Hour of Power podcast, which has been around since actually 2007. They mostly talk about LARP. As I was bringing up before the show, it's like 80% racy banter and then 20% actual content, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, it's a really fun show. But don't go to it expecting very highbrow storytelling topics and the like. But still, it's pretty interesting. I've given a couple episodes a listen.
Cool.
And I've also found out that there's another group, the OWbN Girls, and they just had their first podcast as well, which was with Eddie Webb, and they discussed sexism in gaming, which is a pretty hefty topic.
Yeah, well, good one to tackle. And for those people who don't know, One World by Night is, from their website, a non-profit organization dedicated to creating links between White Wolf's Mind's Eye Theatre LARP games around the world. And OWbN currently stretches to over 100 chronicles in the US, Canada, Brazil, New Zealand, Israel. So, yeah, kind of, I don't know, an alternate Camarilla, maybe. I'm not sure.
I think the history of it is that they broke away from the Camarilla when the Camarilla wanted to hit the restart button and reset all the characters to basic power level. And they just wanted to keep having their old characters in their old games, so it's just kind of a splinter group, which has grown into its own full organization.
Oh, good stuff.
Cool. I think that's it for White Wolf News. Did I miss anything?
Dave, do you have any secret news you can tell us?
If I did, I would have to kill you, and it would involve crossing the Atlantic. So, no, I'm afraid not.
All right, well, without any secret news, we'll have to move on to the secret frequency.
Oh, good link.
It's under the stairs.
Oh, see? I want my mom.
All right, Chris, what do we have tonight?
Tonight we have on the secret frequency Robert the Doll. Here we go. In the early 1900s, a wealthy man by the name of Dr. Otto lived in Key West and took several servants, which were actually slaves, from the Bahamas. In what many speculate was actually an act of revenge, a Bohemian servant gave Robert Eugene Otto a doll made of wireframe, cloth and straw, and most likely a soul stone. Possibly the servant's son had passed away at the time, and so this stone contained the very soul of that dead child. This type of enchantment in some voodoo practices involves a small crystal being placed in the object, thus imbuing it with the power by taking a soul of its own. So, in essence, the servant had placed the soul of the son into this doll. Eugene's sister died around at the same time he was given the doll, and immediately took Robert the doll into his possession. Eugene gave Robert the doll his name of Robert, and he made everyone else call him Eugene or Gene instead. So let's just clarify. Robert Eugene called the doll Robert, and then insisted on everyone calling him from then on Eugene. Throughout his childhood, whenever something bad would happen or something would be blamed on Eugene, he would say Robert did it. More troubling things began to occur though. Glassware and silverware were thrown about the dining room, servants locked out while they were on their nightly rounds, clothing torn up, and bedding was also disturbed when it was meant to have been unused. Other beloved toys belonging to Eugene began to turn up mutilated and brutalized while deep in the night. There was also sounds of giggling. Eugene would often be heard playing joyfully in his toy room one moment, and then, after a solemn silence, the sound of a low conversation would trickle down to the servant's ears, first in Gene's voice, and then in an entirely different voice. Sometimes Eugene's voice would sound agitated, but the responding voice only sounded insistent, and it was these moments that began to trouble first the servants and then Miss Otto. On one occasion, the concerned mother would burst into the room and finds the child, and oddly and unexpectedly, cowering in the corner of the room, while his doll, Robert, was perched in a chair or on the bed, seemingly glaring down at the boy. Eugene would continue to have a close relationship with Robert until he left to study art in Paris, where he met his future wife, Anne. They married and returned to his former home, which was now known as the Artist House. Eugene had craftsmen construct a room scaled to the doll's size, built into the third floor turret of his Victorian-style home. Furniture and ceilings were built to the exact scale. The marriage, however, between Eugene and Anne was a disaster from the very beginning. Eugene insisted that Robert accompany them everywhere, to the dining table and even to next to their wedding bed. I have to laugh at the insanity of this, I'm sorry. Children on their way home from school, and many had been interviewed, claimed that they would see Robert the doll moving around upstairs in the windows when no one was at home. And on some occasions, it was said that he would jump from the window, from one window to the other, watching people as they went by. As Eugene aged and he became increasingly abusive to Anne, it was discovered that on many occasions he would lock her in a slanted closet beneath Robert's room under the stairs for several days at a time. After Eugene's death and burial, Anne left for her family home in Boston and allowed the house to be rented out. When Anne left, she left Robert locked in the upstairs room and put in the lease agreement that Robert must at all times remain the sole occupant of the attic room, or the contract was void. This remained true up until her death in 1976. The first new reports were from a plumber working after Anne left. The plumber reported, "I was doing some work in the larger part of the attic of the house. The people there wanted to make it an additional room, so I was running the lines for a new toilet. The doll looked pretty creepy sitting there on a little chair holding its stuffed animal, but I had work to do, so I didn't think much about it at first. As I continued my work, I had to make a few trips to get some parts from the van. Each time I returned, I could swear that the doll had moved just a little bit. Like I said, I had work to do, so I ignored it. But when I was just about finished with the job and started descending the stairs, I heard a little child giggling behind me. When I turned round, the doll was on the opposite side of the room. The first thing I did was to look to see where the kid was, and no one was there. I wasn't really frightened, but it was weird, so I just continued down the stairs and left."
Wasn't really frightened. I don't believe that for a second.
I know. Bollocks to that man. He was scared. Anyway, future occupants reported hearing noises upstairs, including footsteps, laughter, and crashes. At this time, the doll would be. Where did I get to with this? Anyway, there was sounds of this. Things to continue, but anyway, the doll, we'll get to the simple bit, which is obviously the doll's being heard crashing around, making sounds. When the doll was found giggling and holding a kitchen knife at the foot of the new owner's bed, so there was some new owners at one point, there wasn't any Eugene Otto to blame it on. The new owners left in a hurry, and Robert the haunted doll was moved to his new home in the East Martello Museum in Key West, where he is now well guarded. After many years, Robert was finally rediscovered in storage, and due to popular demand, was put on display. Many people have speculated that Robert was losing energy when he was locked in the chest. So the bit I missed, sorry listeners, that for a time the doll was locked in the chest. So
this
now
is what
the doll
prompted
is on
the kitchen knife incident, isn't it?
Yes. Anyway, so he's now apparently he was draining energy. So now he's on display, and there are accounts that 3 pacemakers have stopped. As people have been walking past the display cabinet where the doll is. Also, many reports of new camera batteries dying in front of him, and similar things such as film not developing properly, and the increased activity of the doll. Museum curators report that Robert often changes position overnight, even though he is locked behind glass in a case inside a brick museum with 3-inch wooden doors and bars on every window. People who come to see Robert also report his facial expressions changing before their eyes. That is it.
Is there a reason you have to just set fire to this horrible thing?
Right. So, it's creepy enough as it is. What would I immediately pull rules from as inspiration for this? World of Darkness antagonist for New World of Darkness has within it the rules for a creature called Doll, which is some form of animated from bits of corpses. Obviously we have the Soul Stone, so we can go down the Mage route. It could be a Pandoran, it could be a Promethean of some form. Guys, any ideas? I mean, just reading this is just mind-meltingly weird. And
so
you only have to look at the picture of it, and you just want to just destroy it on sight.
It's like some horrible little weasel monster, the picture. It really is unpleasant. And then what's even creepier is the doll has its own doll. This little furry thing that it carries that don't touch my doll. Which is awful. The story itself is just filled with all manner of crazy stuff. You know, the guy who's, honey, well, it's bedtime. Oh, and Robert's coming with us.
It's child's play for real.
Well, when you first sent the link about the doll, and I thought, oh, okay, this is just like Chucky, but this is far, far, far more horrendous than you know that little plastic thing ever could be in the movie. And like you, I thought of some kind of freaky little Promethean, and the Major Soul Stone. The fact that you know that it actually is called a Soul Stone is that's an easy shoe-in right there for some part of a dead mage's soul that's trying to exact revenge, simply trying to live its life, wanting to be treated like a person that it no longer can be. If the mage himself is long gone, some fragment of his soul may kind of remain and knows it's trapped in this diminutive body, and you know, it could just want a normal life, and its concepts and attitudes and outlooks are just so twisted that when someone locks it in a sea chest, it's like, I'm gonna get a knife and I'm gonna kill those bastards. Oh, of course, a wraith is obviously an option. You know, that it becomes some kind of fetter for one of the dead. And you go right back to the beginning of the story. The child of the slave who died, some kind of revenge upon his owner, who may have been a cruel owner, and now I'm going to put my twisted child spirit into your family life and see what hijinks ensue. What I thought of was interesting, given the bizarre way that Eugene himself behaves, that it occurred to me that it could be some kind of focus for mental influence. And stepping away from the doll story a little bit, I like the idea of certain practices of magic being a kind of avenue for psychological pressure, and that the magic actually is happening. The magic is being done to the person by themselves. You tell somebody you've cursed them, you make a big deal about how you've cursed somebody, and then that leads them to attribute misfortune in their life to you, even though it's just simple misfortune. They then start to attach significance to your deeds and your words, even though there is none there. So you can have this this doll that's come into your life, or some other item, and you're led to believe that this thing is possessed and evil and is causing you to do all sorts of horrible things, when in fact it's just you. You're just mad, and you are in fact some kind of lunatic who wants to sleep with a doll and your wife and put her in a cupboard when she misbehaves.
That's quite interesting you say that, because you can also then go down a route that's related to spirits and spirit manifestation that's detailed a lot in Book of Spirits, where, as I said, like it could be a scenario which is self-fulfilling, where the person believes it so much that this item becomes an anchor for it, and so becomes I'm trying to think of the term. It's not a hollow. What's it to do with spirits? But it becomes a nexus for spiritual energy, and so because of what are in essence actually mundane actions, but it's that level of belief causing it to breach over the veil. And
also, if you happen to be, a vampire with dominate or another supernatural, you can have somebody believing that it's the doll that's doing this to them, or the doll is making them do it. When in fact you're sitting, half a city away in a vampire lair, exerting mental influence over some poor hapless mortal who believes it's all coming from the doll, and that could be a nice way to preserve the masquerade. No, it was the doll that made him do it. It wasn't me.
Or it could be some cursed item. It could be a doll that's been brought from Arcadia. Just to go with the creepy changeling factor, because dolls are creepy enough. Add in the changeling factor, and then it's really a bit freaky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, Chris. That's what I was thinking, actually. What if Robert the Doll was actually the fetch of the real
Yes.
Robert
I was just
Eugene?
thinking
Yeah.
that. Yes.
And Robert comes back, and that's why he has this weird connection to the doll and uses the same name for him. But when he comes back, he takes his rightful place, but doesn't destroy the fetch. And
Oh wow.
as such, the fetch is, what do you call it? I want to call it the mind, but that's the seeming of the
mask.
the changeling. Yeah, the
Yeah.
mask, right. Well, its image disappears, and it just becomes the rag doll that it usually is, because the fetch, when it's destroyed, becomes like a rag doll, or just bits of junk, really. So that could be a very interesting idea to have going on in your story, where the fetch is still alive, it just looks like a doll, in this case.
That's really nice. Yeah. Well, I say nice, but I mean.
Not nice. The right sort of nice.
Yeah.
So I've been told there are more horrible doll stories. So I will ensure that we get those and add them in as well, because you can never have enough stories about supernatural dolls going around
You said
wielding knives.
Your wife pointed this one out to you. You said.
Yeah, she pointed.
Yeah,
out
thanks for that. This thing has weirded me out the entire day. It really has upset me.
Cool.
Yeah, she looks quite happy with herself. You weirded out everyone. Yeah. Okay. So she found it on her Tumblr feed, so she'll find more of this stuff. You have more stories like this? She nods her head with a kind of a sigh of, yes, there is more of this weirdness.
Crazy.
I think that's enough. I mean, again, everything we've said for New World of Darkness is totally applicable for Old World of Darkness very easily, as we keep saying with these things. So, yeah, go out there, players, storytellers, scale players with haunted dolls.
What's nice about it is it's non-categorical. It ties into that great advice that the New World of Darkness has really brought into allowed you to fold back into your Old World of Darkness games, which is step away from the 5 or 6 or 7 established supernatural types and make it something where the answer is, I don't know, just something creepy. Don't know what it is.
Great. We also have a very esteemed guest with us. Dave, do you have any ideas or suggestions with this?
When I read it in the show notes, I was just hung up on the fact that he changed his name and gave it to the doll, gave his real name to the doll. Like the doll had become a copy of him, or was growing into a copy of him, and then when he died, it was like sort of like a half ghost of him. So yeah, then I started thinking fetches, and then you mentioned it. So some kind of like it's absorbing the idea of being a person along with their life energy, which is why it's stopping the pacemakers of everybody that comes to look at it in the museum. That kind of thing. It could be. It could be make for a really creepy story. Be very good for a hunter game, actually.
Yeah. I'd like to see the individual who found this thing in storage at the museum and thought, I know, let's get this out again, put it on display. What are you doing?
Yeah, we need to. I think we need to. We need more creepy items that just happen to be on display in museums around the world, because it's just trying to get into the mentality of the people that set up the displays at museums and just go, yeah, let's put that out, and not really paying attention to the history of the thing.
Well, what's great about it is it's if it's a real world place, you can if somebody is in Florida, go ahead, go down there, take some photos. Make it tell us what it's like. That would be really good. Awesome. I mean, we had a story about dolls way back, and a couple of our listeners actually tried to go to the location where these dolls were, but either the house had burnt down or it had been swallowed up into the Umbra or something. I don't know, but they couldn't find it. But if anyone's able to actually verify the existence of Robert the Doll, and do so safely, please, don't go alone, then that would be really cool to see.
Don't look him in the eye.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, I think that's it for the secret frequency. So let's move on over to the Q&A segment with Dave Brookshaw.
Topics of highbrow storytelling.
All right, Dave.
Okay.
Let's start off simple. Why don't you establish your geek cred?
Establish my geek cred. Okay. I have been role-playing for far longer than seems safe. Since primary school, the longest I've ever been not in a game is about 4 or 5 months for over 20 years. At any given time, I'm subjecting one of my games to public consumption by writing them up on RPGNet as actual play threads. And it was doing that and reviewing Mage the Ascension books towards the end of that line and talking about Mage the Ascension online. Things that brought me to the attention of some of the guys at White Wolf, which is why I was then persuaded. They didn't take much persuading to submit a writing sample, and that got me working. So I've gone from being a big fan to putting my ideas on the firing line, and well, so far people seem to be enjoying it and buying it. I think Imperial Mysteries, it's doing pretty well. Last time I checked on Drive-Thru RPG, I think we passed the gold medal, which puts us in quite a high percentage of
Excellent, congratulations.
things that are going on. Yeah, thank you. So yes, and I think the most important thing for my geek cred is that I have to have a specially reinforced bookshelf in my house to carry the weight of all the hardback New World of Darkness books, because
Awesome.
it broke 3 IKEA ones.
Outstanding, excellent.
I know. I can understand that quite well. Cool.
Yeah. Cool. What did you start with? Were you a D&D red boxer or Call of Cthulhu or?
This is one for the Brits. I started with Fighting Fantasy.
Oh,
Okay.
excellent.
When
The
I was
books
8.
or the?
The books originally, and then
Did you ever complete Warlock of Firetop Mountain without cheating?
not without cheating. I did complete Forest of Doom without cheating, though. I didn't get anywhere through Creature of Havoc. Caverns of the Snow Witch was good. I think I'm back to re-establishing my geek cred. Anyway, yeah. So there I was. I wasn't even 10, and I liked to. I really like those game books. For people that don't know what we're talking about, these are like choose fantasy novels that are broken up into paragraphs, and you have choices. You get to the end of the paragraph, and it's like, if you want to go left down the corridor, turn to paragraph 87. If you want to go right, turn to paragraph 105. It's that kind of thing. So it's like
I think
a big branching narrative.
White Wolf did a joke one, didn't they?
They did,
Last year?
yes.
Yeah.
The
Last
storytelling.
April Fool.
Yeah.
Paths of
So-
Storytelling. Yeah, if
Bloody
you want to
hell.
be bitten by the Malkavian, turn to page 84. That kind of thing. Anyway, I liked to invent my own ones. I'd draw the branching path for myself and then write them, and chop the paragraphs up, randomize the order of them, and then write it all out in a notebook. And I thought I was awesome.
Cool.
And then I got a book called Out of the Pit, which was pretty much just a list of all of the creatures that were in any of those fantasy books, and that turned out to actually be the Monster Manual equivalent for the role-playing game version of it, which is called Fighting Fantasy.
Yeah. I think I've seen that one in a very old magazine somewhere, because that was back in the days when Games Workshop actually made roleplay games.
And then I got that, and found out what a actual role-playing game was. And then I got the D&D, read the version of old D&D without the A on it that went up to about 5th level.
All right. Okay.
It's isn't it? Because I had a box set. It's I think they refer to it as like what classic D&D.
Something like that, yeah.
Because I got started into role playing with classic D&D, and if you check the edition, it's like 18th edition. So
yeah, that's the stuff. And it just went on from there. It was always kind of on the edge of my awareness. I mean, the original LARP, Treasure Trap.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Was held at a castle near about 10 miles away from the town I lived in. So it was, and one of the reasons I went to the university I went to was that the second oldest LARP, also called Treasure Trap, which started as a bus group taking students to the original LARP, was there. And
which university was that?
Durham.
Oh, really? I was born in Durham.
Oh, yeah.
So red and white or black and white?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, when I lived up there, I used to go to the Newcastle rugby team. I've never set foot in either football stadium.
Very avant-garde.
Oh, yes. So that, early explorations in role-playing games were old D&D, and then a strange sort of an AD&D first edition old D&D mashup where we'd got our hands on the Fiend Folio, didn't have a player's handbook, couldn't figure out what some of the expanded monster stats were used for, so made it up ourselves. Traveller.
Excellent.
Yeah, and then sometime in the early 90s, a guy in my game group brought Vampire the Masquerade home, and my bookshelves have never been the same since.
Yeah. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So, Dave, we got a lot of questions from the listeners, and let's just get started with those. So, this comes from Peter, and he's wondering what your favorite RPG is that you've never run.
That I've never run. Hellas Worlds of Sun and Stone. It's a science fiction ancient epic game. Greeks in space. Which, that was meant to have a bit of reverb on it, like, Muppets in space. Yeah, thanks. It's retelling ancient Greek myths through a semi-science fiction setting, in that all of the cities are planets. Troy is a planet, for instance. The people all have the hoplite soldiers have jetpacks and laser swords, and the version of hyperspace that their spaceships go through to travel between planets has a it's almost like the hyperspace from Babylon 5, or like by the look of it, it's like it's specifically called a wine dark void, because that's how the sea is described in the Odyssey. And it has a breathable atmosphere. So you take off from a planet in your spaceship, get far enough away from the planet, and then you slip into hyperspace, and you unfurl the sails, pop all the hatches open, get up onto the deck, and sail between the stars, occasionally fighting off harpies.
That
sounds awesome.
Who's that by?
It's great. It's by let me reach and get it. Khepera, Khepra Publishing. It's an Omni-System game. If you ever, the guys who wrote it are Michael Fiegel and Jerry Grayson. If you ever see it, you'll spot it on a game store shelf because it's sideways. The books, the same. Hellas books are the same proportion as most role-playing game books, but horizontally, so the spine is on the short edge, which
like a
is
fancy
a little bit.
coffee table book.
They're in landscape. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And centaurs are squid. Centaurs are squid aliens that ride around in big quadrupedal robot mechs. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And I would be running it instead of Mage right now. Only one of my players didn't really like it when he read through it, so I'm waiting for another group to have an opening, and buying up and contributing to the Kickstarters to have supplements published as much as I can.
The setting sounds
like?
Just
Yeah,
waiting.
I was going to say the setting sounds a bit like some of the Dan Simmons sci-fi series? I think is it Hyperion?
Hyperion.
I've heard of, yeah, or
That's-
it's something along those lines that has like the idea of like the Greek gods and so forth, but in space.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's one of those. I know of it. I need to read it. Yeah, it's on my list of things to do. But yeah, that sounds awesome.
The comparison to Hyperion, which is one of my favourite books, before Dan Simmons got struck down by the terrible brain eater and began to think that Muslims were going to destroy the world. No, terrible shame. That comparison was what attracted me to the game. Well, that and Ulysses 31.
Cool. I can see why it's a cool game. Because like one of my favourite sci-fi role-play games is Fading Suns. So anything kind of epic like that's awesome. Cool.
Brilliant.
Awesome. And we got another question from Peter, which is, what current game line or company do you feel has the strongest products? Obviously, you can't say White Wolf.
Okay.
No.
Well, my notes actually have White Wolf, obviously, in bracket, and then Posthuman, the guys who make Eclipse Phase.
Right. Yeah, Eclipse Phase, they give that out for free, don't they?
You can get a Adam Jorian company. Posthuman are some of the guys who split from Catalyst back in when
Probably like 2009.
Shadowrun went through financial troubles a couple of years ago. They've taken Eclipse Phase is all about it's about like the evolving digital societies. It's there are stats in it to track your reputation on social networks. That kind of thing, and they're very forward thinking. And one of the things that the Posthuman guys decided to do was that they were completely do an end run around any considerations of game piracy by seeding it on torrent sites themselves. You can go and find a free copy as a PDF. You can go to DriveThruRPG and pay for a PDF if you want to, or you can buy a physical copy of the book, and it's published under a Creative Commons license. You're allowed to strip all the pictures out and just throw it around your game groups as Word files. Use the images on player handouts that you've made yourselves. Anything you like, as long as you give them credit for it and you don't try to make any money off it.
Wow,
that's really good. I mean, it's what everyone does anyway, so
yeah,
that's really good.
And it works. They announced they're one of the few game companies that announces their results at the end of the years. You know how they're doing, and people do still buy it. I know in my group, because I run it, we've got one copy of it. One guy did take one of the copies that Posthuman themselves seeded as a PDF for quick reference, and then we've actually got 4 hardback versions of the core book. Mm-hmm. And it's basically free advertising.
It is,
the people who would pirate a game were never going to pay for it anyway.
Oh, not very true.
Yeah, and the products themselves have fantastic production values. Eclipse Phase books they're beautiful. You really have to. You should check it out. It's kind of a different sort of horror to White Wolf games. It's much more. Humanity has stepped boldly out into the universe and found that the universe is big and dark and cold, and the answer to where are all the aliens? Why hasn't anyone contacted us? Is they're all dead, and humanity has barely survived the same kind of event that killed all of them, and may be doomed at any moment. One of several dozen existential threats might wipe transhumanity out, and really check it out.
So more kind of, I would say, in comparison to, because I'm looking to run something once I've got my gaming group going here, but it seems like a more kind of highbrow version of, I would say maybe a bit like Cthulhu tech. So again, like the horrors out in space, and of course humanity now has technology to go there, and it's like, oh shit, didn't really want to come here.
And those two games, after they split from Catalyst, those two games were published by I want to say Sandstorm, but I'm not entirely sure about it.
Yeah, something like that.
And they're often next to one another at Gen Con, that kind of thing. They share over booths. Eclipse Phase has a lot more about if you can reduce the technology exists in the game world. It's like the Takeshi Kovacs novels. People have implants in their necks called cortical stacks, which record their consciousness. So if they die, they're made out of like diamond hard altered carbon material. When they die, you can take that out and read their mind out into a computer and put it into a new body, and then society adapts to that by making it a thing where, why wait until you die? You can just change bodies as easily as putting on a new set of clothes. And it deals with the implications of that. The game is about the implications of that kind of technology and the horrible, horrible things it does to society, or also the really hopeful things it does to society. It's about change that might kill everybody, but might be really good, or might be a bit of both.
Excellent.
Cool. All right, I'm going to combine the next two questions.
Okay.
So, what is the best thing and the worst thing to happen in the pen and paper RPG industry in the past 20 years, and how has that affected, do you feel, D&D 5th edition?
When I was a D&D player, because, everybody... I was a D&D player. I did play AD&D. I played AD&D 2nd edition from about I want to say quite early on in that edition's run through to the end. I even bought Skills and Powers books. I know. And 3rd edition came out when I was just leaving university, so I got the 3rd edition core books, had a vague idea for a storyline upon reading them, ended up running that storyline using Exalted instead, as you do. I did play a D20 game. I played a 3rd edition Dragonlance game very late in the day, and then I got the 4th edition core books and ran one session of it, and that's it. So my experience with latter D&D is pretty much just idly reading a D20 or a 4th ed book when I've picked it up off somebody's shelves. When the D20 boom was going on, I was very much in a in a White Wolf mood. The worst thing to ever happen to role-playing was the death of settings, or the the squeezing of settings. I mean, the TSR days, they put out so much evocative setting material that they went bust doing it. Because their response to financial insecurity was to just continue churning out new box sets, which was great for the consumer, but not so good for them as a company. And it ended poorly. And you think about all the classic World of Darkness and Fading Suns and Blue Planet and Shadowrun and all those great games. And maybe this is just because those are the games that came out during my teenage years and early 20s. But even the Forgotten Realms, compare its second edition material to its D20 material, and then to its fourth edition material. And back in the day, you had the rules for role-play games were very contained in the core books, and then the supplements were much more. They were much more setting oriented.
Yeah.
And then in the D20 days, they half the book would be taken up by prestige classes and feats, and then in the fourth edition days, 3/4 of the book would be taken up by races, new character classes, and list of powers. So the setting material has been squeezed. And I think it's a reaction to the downsides of Metaplot going too far and throwing the baby out, which has left us with some games which maybe take the toolkit notion slightly too far. If you have no central setting to a game, then there's nothing for fans from different groups to engage with one another about. You don't build a community based around your game, and because nobody talks about your game dies. Because word of mouth advertising is the only thing keeping a role playing game alive nowadays. Does that make sense?
That does kind of makes some
massive sense. Yeah.
Yeah. When what you were saying about settings being thrown out and how it attracts players, is that also, would you say, a possible reason for why some players may? I think this has come up in discussions about New World of Darkness, and in particular, like Vampire will sometimes, because they have this more contemporary attitude that you can take a rule system or a game system, and the idea that you can run it any way you want. Sometimes they have a bad experience with a game because the setting there isn't enough setting in the books they're buying, in the initial book they're buying, to guide them in running the game as the game was designed, as it was designed. Because I sometimes have this issue with some people's attitudes towards how Vampire the Requiem is, as in how they're running it. Sometimes is they're trying to go too far away from what it was originally designed for, and that may be because their attitude coming to the game based upon their attitudes built from other games that are very setting light. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. And if you look at Vampire, Vampire is not GURPS Vampire the Requiem. It's
no.
It is not a settingless template. Vampire the Requiem has a setting. I actually kind of prefer it to Vampire the Masquerade setting.
Yay!
There's, but if you compare the Requiem core book right at the start of the new WoD to Changeling's core book, you can see a difference there. Yeah, there's a difference in emphasis as the latter New World of Darkness games, they all have settings, but the latter New World of Darkness games, I don't know. It's like the core books are more experienced at showing them off. Certainly, I think the best thing that ever happened to Mage the Awakening was when the books stopped apologising for not being Mage the Ascension.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That might be a bit controversial, but we'll get to that.
Awesome.
Indeed. All right. Really quick, when you play chess, what piece do you lead with?
Yeah, thanks, Beckett. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought long and hard about this, and I'm going to say a knight. For every few steps forward, I end up going strangely sideways.
Interesting.
Excellent.
Okay. I'll agree with the knight. That's always a good one to lead with. Cool. All right. Now this question I kind of modified. It's one of Beckett's. And
Okay.
if there were an 80s World of Darkness cartoon, what would it be like, and would it be re-released on DVD today?
You ever seen that YouTube parody of Watchmen babies?
Yes.
No, I haven't.
Yeah. I've just got this horrible image of a toned down to get past the Saturday morning censors, cell shaded probably by Hanna-Barbera, thing where every where there's Vamp Boy and Werewolf Girl and so on. It'd be very much like the Super Friends. DVD, yeah, I think it probably would have come out. Probably would have been on sale for about 2 months before it got pulled off the shelves for not selling. But nowadays, in the advent of Blu-ray, the DVDs of it would command very high prices on eBay. It'd be kind of a cult thing, you know. People would put it on YouTube for geek cred value. Like, look what I've got. Kind of like how the Vampire TV show ended up.
Yep. Kindred the Embraced. Yeah.
That's really good, that.
Interesting. All right. Well, you already answered the question whether you can tell us about any secret projects or not. You said you'd have to kill us, so we'll avoid that one.
Yeah. Does anybody ever answer that?
Like maybe once or twice. Someone said, "Okay, here's what's coming," but like really once. And then once there was one guest who answered it, and midway through the sentence, we heard like a sniper shot in the background, and light just went dead. So they do have ninjas. We have to be careful.
The thing is, I never know how much to say or not. So I normally don't. I never even admit to working on a book until somebody else has. On the basis that the White Wolf NDA ninjas will kill him first and give me enough time to run away. So thank you, David Hill, who has admitted to working on the Vampire Blood Sorcery book, because yeah,
cool.
Cool.
So you can't tell us what that is, though.
No,
Okay.
apart from the fact that there is a Vampire Blood Sorcery book coming out.
Oh, cool.
I think Russell Bailey's been on the forums already explaining about it.
But it's a fair bet that it will be about blood sorcery in some shape or form.
Yes, really. Yeah. There's, just before I came on here, I was typing away on a project that I'm really excited about, but I just can't tell you. Yeah.
Yeah, I know how that is.
Cool. And the last question, this is always a tough one. It comes from Martin. What has been your favorite book to write thus far?
My favorite. Oh, it's like people always ask you to pick. Okay, some writers will tell you my favorite book. That's like asking me to pick my favorite child. But
Yeah, that's easy.
For me, it's like which week of sleepless nights do you like the most? Okay. Thinking back, and I think it's probably gonna be Sears of the Throne. Yeah, cool. I think it's gonna be Sears of the Throne. Sears was the first Mage book that I worked on. The fact that they had written all the Pentacle Order books meant that I knew, as a fan, that the Sears of the Throne book must be coming out, and that impetus of if That could be really, really good, or it could go horribly, horribly wrong. That's what finally gave me the kick up the arse to start writing. Just the prospect of being able to work on it, and it wound up being the second book that I wrote for.
Cool.
So, it was the start of many friendships and professional collaborations, and I just really enjoyed doing an antagonist right.
That's a great book.
Really getting into the skin of the horrible sellout bastards.
Yeah,
It is an awesome, awesome book.
Yeah, and Chris, you got a bunch of questions about it, don't you?
I do have some. I do have something lined up for it in particular. Okay, since David's mentioned Sears of the Throne, then I think we'll combine this into my two questions into one, which is really, how would you explain the book to storytellers and what it would offer to their game? And when you were writing this book, what was your main objective that you wanted to achieve with this book? What kind of thing did you really want to ensure was added to Mage? And obviously, because you're quite experienced with Mage the Ascension, then I guess, how important was it to differentiate between the Sears of the Throne and obviously Mage Ascension's technocracy?
The technos, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Sears of the Throne, they are cipher in the Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
Mage presents a setting in which the universe as we know it was the creation of a unspecified large number of ancient mages who ascended to the supernal realms, broke the world doing it, and set themselves up as the gods of reality. They have designed our world as to be as they like it. They can't really stop mages from awakening, but some mages, because if inevitably if you give a group of human beings the knowledge that there's these people outside of their group which have power over them, many of them will try to fight. Many of them will try to hide, and some of them will try to sell out. So they're not the if reality is a prison, they're not the prison guards. They're the people who are on special privileges for ratting on their cellmates. They get nicer bunk beds and better food. So they're the traitors. They're the reason the world of darkness is a world of darkness. They are specifically instructed by the Exarchs to find every way that humanity innovates to make life worse for itself and promote the shit out of it.
Great.
In exchange for power and the promise that one day if they work hard enough and if they follow orders, work hard enough, and backstab enough of their fellow seers, then one day they might be allowed to ascend and join the people outside.
So in your very description of the Sears of the Throne, they're compared to the technocracy of Mage Ascension, they're a very different beast.
Yeah.
Even though they fill the kind of the same sort of space in the two games side by side, they fill that natural, immediate antagonist within the game. They're quite a different beast. If anything, when reading the Sears of the Throne, they're a hell of a lot more scarier than the technocracy. They make the technocracy look like organized fun. The technocracy, they're like, we want organized fun. You can do all that as long as it follows the rules. Whereas the Sears of the Throne are more like, no, you can't have any fun. We've got the toys. Screw you.
In some way, it's almost like the technocracy could be some subset of a Sears of the Throne ministry. One of their technocracy of their toys. Right. Well, yes.
Well, this goes back to where I said I mentioned that it almost feels like where there's the point in the Series of the Throne book, and it's of course it's mentioned the Free Council, where the Free Council, before they became the Free Council, were offered the choice of joining the Series of the Throne, so that technology could be the way of like in short, was like having control over technology and that modernism and that all the things that humanity creates for itself without magic. It was like that's almost like if Sears could have got that, there would have been like the last lock on the door to turn the new World of Darkness setting into the classic World of Darkness setting. So it's like that to me feels like the natural splinter point where if the Free Council had gone, okay, yeah, we like the deal, they would have become the Technocracy, but they didn't, and that's why it's a great setting, because it feels you can see that splinter point in the two realities.
Really yeah.
I think the word technocracy is even in the core book. Whenever I've tried to bring it up again in books, editors have deleted it.
Was it the Free Council say they didn't want technocracy, they wanted democracy or something like that.
It's about the Great Refusal.
Yeah. So what's So your main objective then in writing the Seers of the Throne book, making them scary as hell, or
was to make them compared to the Technocracy.
Yeah.
Because the Technocracy are a laddered approach. Or an ivory tower, where the majority of technocrats, they're well-intentioned idiots.
Yeah.
They don't know that they're mages, and they don't realise what they're doing. They think that they're protecting the world, while they're just controlling the world. The technocrats who are high enough up to know that they are mages are effectively, they're screwing their own acolytes, their own servants, and the rest of humanity as a whole, out of the belief that a little totalitarianism is just not enough, and unfortunately, because the Guide to the Technocracy was written, as most old World of Darkness books were, from an in-character perspective, you got the view of the ground level agents. And did Malcolm go on about this when you had him on?
A little.
Yeah. Okay. The Guide to the Technocracy, a technocratic player character, has how much they are brainwashed as a stat.
Yes.
Right? This is not to be taken literally as they are the good guys. No. Playing a technocrat who realizes that who realizes what the organization he works for is really for is a hell of a dramatic chronicle.
Yeah. I've kind of played that kind of role as a kind of a Jack Bauer NWO grey agent who kind of just knew that his entire parts of his organization was so damned corrupt, and so he was kind of like, screw you. We
had one where she discovered halfway through she was a clone. That was good fun.
Yeah, exactly. And when I ran a Technocracy Chronicle, that's where I went for. That's what I went for. I had the hard-bitten New World Order man in grey and the progenitor who found out that she was a clone. Weird. But yeah, but also the Iteration X agent who had amnesia, and the bad guy turned out to be his own mind, which had been uploaded to the digital web as a malevolent entity, and wanted its body back. Yeah. Anyway, so Seers of the Throne, they know they're bastards.
Yes.
The main, because we knew that people had where Guide to the Technocracy was in our minds, it was in the place that we knew how it had been interpreted by a lot of people, rightly or wrongly, and we knew that we wanted to be straight about it. I think there's even a sidebar about, but can't I have good intentions and try to, if I've been put in charge of of managing a dictator, can't I make him be nice? Which basically goes on around, people expect dictators to do dictator-like things, and if you go around trying to improve the lot of people, by manipulating your dictator towards the cause of human happiness, then one of his own people is probably going to kill him, and then you'll have to start again. The best that you can hope for as a seer is to take a small community and brainwash the hell out of it, and run it as your own private little fief, like the guys in the story book for Mage Awake, Reign of the Exarchs.
Reign of the Exarchs, yeah.
Yeah, the little English village that plays cricket all the time. Yeah.
The perfect society as foreseen by a seer of the throne who's an English vicar.
Yeah. I think I live there.
Yeah.
I think I've lived there as well. Yeah.
So
Cool.
we wanted them to be clear on the fact that they were making life worse for everybody in the hope of reward. And when writing it, we wanted to get across the fact that they're horrible people who use other people. The Seers of the Throne's signature artifact lets them possess a sleeper so that they can walk around and taunt Pentacle Mages, safe in the knowledge that if the Pentacle Mage gets annoyed and kills them, then they've just killed an innocent person, and the Seer himself is laughing. When I did the monsters at the end of the book, the servants, the new mage equivalent of hit marks and men in black and such, they are all humans that have had something terrible done to them.
Sweet.
They're all seer minion races, if you will, are all. They're all modified humans, or people that have had artifacts used on them, or people that have had their souls eaten, have big bite taken out of their souls by a creature from the lower depths, that kind of thing. And just that element of casual destruction of other people's hopes and dreams is what we're really going for.
Right.
So Dave, not too long ago on RPG.net, there was a thread, you probably saw this, that was asking like how you could play a Seers of the Throne Chronicle. So do you have any suggestions about how that could be done?
How to play a group of Seers. Accept it for what it is and go crazy with it. Really, Seers are on the same morality track as all other mages. They have wisdom like everybody else. So, and one of the things that we touch on in the book is that they have big psychological problems. When one of the exarchs starts talking to you in your dreams and commanding you to do horrible things for people, that takes a toll. But many Seers and some of the sample Seers that we have in the book are in it because they're afraid. They were some Seers go heartily into the sign me up for running the world for my own aggrandizement. But some Seers are in it for their pentacle tutors carefully explain the cosmology of the Mage universe, and that there are these big, all-powerful god entities in the supernal realms that they're rebelling against, and they crap themselves and sign up to the Seers as the safe option, because at least you're not in the firing line. if that happens to you. So there is quite a lot, there's quite a lot to play at, and I think you'd have to be able to accept a certain amount of jovial backstabbing.
Sounds like it basically sounds like the play style sounds like a kind of a mid to high tier kind of like vampire game. Then with that, you know that you can't trust the other players at the table who are
exactly.
your coterie, and I've seen this happen. Is like people ready to screw each other over because it works for the story, and it requires that everyone knows that they're out for their own game at some point. And if you accept that, then you can just get on with playing the game and enjoying it, rather than going, "Oh, I don't want to be hurt." Awesome.
And also give them conflicting orders.
Yeah.
The Pylon's priest has been told by the Ruin that this particular human child must die, but one of the other Pylon members has been told by a different exarch entirely that not only does he have to kill the priest, but he has to save the kid.
Yeah. Brilliant. I was going to ask, which of the ministries of the Scissor Throne is your favourite? Because this mostly says something about you as a person.
I'm going to say... I tend to make my own minor ministries up whenever I need them. I guess it's going to be... my current chronicle revolves around Mammon.
Okay.
The Ministry of Mammon, who are one of the also rans. They're the also ran that didn't quite get written up in the book because there wasn't room for them. But the true underdogs of that story are Pantechnicon, who I managed to get into Mage Noir. Who are the Pantechnicon are the those free returning a bit. Pantechnicon are the members of the Free Council who did sign up.
Yeah.
And who escaped the rest of the Free Council. But of the great ministries, the ones that the splat write-ups for, I guess it's going to be Panopticon. Because they're creepy.
Yeah, they're my favourite as well.
They're very, very creepy. The Grigori are my favourite of the Seer monsters. Pantechnicon themselves have a marvellous and really quite horrible internal structure where every member of Pantechnicon has to spy on one member of Pantechnicon who's higher ranking than himself and one member who's lower than himself, so everybody is spying on everybody else at the same time. And then at the top, the minister is constantly being spied upon by the Eye, which seems a little unfair, but there you go. And so they're the guys who hoard the profane Urims and put the Pentacle cabals under surveillance and like to wander up to Pentacle mages and casually use their real names, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's
Panopticon are like totally badass, but I think I love them coming from the point of view that I liked playing as virtual adepts for classic mage. So obviously I like Panopticon as like purely because they're the immediate opposite in that kind of sense, and I also have lots of love for the Free Council. So
yeah,
cool. Right. Oh, is that enough for Mage, or I think there's one other? Is it, no?
That's the Throne.
That's enough for Sister of the Throne. I think the other good question I've got is, in what way did your own games influence the content you put into Seers of the Throne? So obviously, going into writing the book, you had some ideas of what you wanted to put in. So
yeah, I wrote Seers of the Throne about a third of the way through Soul Cage. How did my own games influence it? an artifact that I had brought up and then forgotten about in my game made it into the book when I had the idea and didn't remember that I'd already had the idea. You know how that sometimes
Yeah.
happens. But nobody noticed, so nobody on the thread noticed. That was okay. It really was an offhand thing. Some of the pylon structure, the Pentacle factions have the Pentacle mages have factions within each Pentacle order, and the Seers of the Throne have I think we ended up calling them methodologies, which is a technocracy callback actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was the way that they worked, which was closest to. I was involved in figuring out how they would work, and that was pretty much close to how I envisaged the Seers as working, especially because Sanctum and Sigil came out and had several different types of Seer pylon in it. It has a short section on Seer pylons. Most importantly, it had more different types of Seer pylon in it than we had room for methodologies. So the methodologies of the appearances of the throne are they're carefully designed to each encompass 2 of the different types of pylon that were in Sanctum and Sigil.
All right. Okay.
Which nobody noticed. But one of those methodology types are the guys who look for omens. They search for answers from they search for signs and portents from the exarchs, and I think they specifically they call the people who spout messages from the exarchs, or like a normal sleeper who just occasionally gets instructions from the eye on her TV screen, and therefore requires a seer to carefully manage her and write everything down. They call the oracles. They call them Pytheas after the priestess in the Temple of Apollo in ancient Greece, and that is from Broken Diamond. That's from my Mage game.
Good stuff. Right, so Imperial Mysteries has just come out.
Yes,
hot
finally.
off the press, off the internet. Now you co-wrote this with Malcolm Shepard, who is,
I did.
As anybody should know, is one of the mage gurus.
He is.
Apologies, Malcolm, for calling you a guru, but you are. Yes. So what was it like working with him on the book? He's got such a broad understanding of the mage game and all its incarnations. Did you feel that you really had to up your game, especially given that the subject matter was archmages of all things? Was the pressure on?
Very, very. Actually, no, not really. Very early on in this, I said that I'd written some reviews of Ascension books, and they were of Malcolm's books. I was a big fan of Malcolm's in Ascension. His work on Akashic Brotherhood and New Thanatos.
That's fantastic. Really good.
And up to and including the way that he actually managed to. I honestly think, I'm not just sucking up to my mate, I honestly think that Ascension is the best of the ending books. Malcolm properly finished the entire Mage meta plot. He managed to cram everything in. He even managed to get into touch with Kathy Ryan to find out what the ending for Amanda should have been, and then didn't put it in the book, but made sure that he didn't contradict it. So that if she ever did manage to publish a novel about it, or if there was ever interest, then it wouldn't be contradicted. I mean, that is great. And then somebody finally realised on a forum a while back that Vormas, the Grand Harvester of Souls, who the ultimate bad guy of Mage the Ascension, who caused the end of the world by making necromancy be a bad thing.
Yeah.
And the Old Man of the Hollow, the Aeon of Paradox in Mage the Awakening. Same guy.
I was just reading about him today. Fantastic. Oh my god. Head explode. How cool.
I know. Or rather, they're played by the same actor. The physical expressions of them are the same. So
that's true. Oh my god.
But Malcolm. I think so I was a big fan of his, and I worked with him on Sears, and we found that we have very complementary writing styles. In that I horrendously overplan everything and then go into a big stress towards the end of a writing period to actually get things finished, but by the deadline, while Malcolm sits down with a blank word processor, doesn't know what he's going to write, and just whacks it out. But whenever I'm flagging on a project, I know that if I just read one of the prototype sections that Malcolm has passed around, it inspires me to carry on.
It's very inspirational.
Yeah.
Well, his blogs are like that as well. You just have to kind of browse over his blog for a couple of days, and it really kind of fires you up. It's good.
Yeah, so we found that we worked really well together. We worked together on Citizens of the Throne, and then Dances in the Dusk, and then the Mage Chronicles Go, and we just hit it up, and we'd both seen and acknowledged the fan demand for an Art Mage book.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm wrote the section in Tome of the Mysteries about Art Mages, and he was the recipient of the secret wisdom, because when Mage was originally designed, they kind of sort of knew what the Art Mages would be like.
Right.
Specifically, they knew what the Imperial practices were.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm was just keeping it safe for future need.
Cool.
One day they'd use it. And I came out of one particular thread on the White Wolf boards thinking, we really should do an Art Mage book. I wish, the guys would say about it. And I noticed Malcolm was coming out the same thread the same way, and I was having work done on my house, so I was off the day job for about a week with nothing to do, and I just emailed him going, do you fancy writing it up and submitting it together?
Oh wow, cool.
That was nearly 2 years ago.
Bloody hell! So it wasn't. It was literally something you put it together and pitched it, as opposed to writing it on spec.
We wrote the entire outline and pitched it, sent it in. Tragically, we sent it in, or not tragically, because it came out. Frustratingly, we sent it in just after the guys had decided the product lineup for 2011.
Oh, all right, yeah. Okay.
So there was time went on, and then almost a year to the day, they got back to us and said, "So, do you actually want to write it?" Yeah.
Wow. Excellent. Well, it's a lot shorter than many of the other Mage supplements. Did you have to leave much on the cutting room floor? Or was there stuff you'd have liked to have included or added to what was already there if you were able?
We, as tends to be the way with PDF supplements, actually, almost every Exalted short form book does this. The only PDF book that I've been on that hasn't done this was Mage Noir, where we managed to keep to length. But Imperial Mysteries massively overran,
Wow.
like massively. It's way longer than it was meant to be.
Uh-huh.
The
Even though it's shorter, when I was looking through it today and yesterday, it's crammed. I mean, every page is just crammed, and it's unashamedly full of esoteric, to use a catchword, highbrow. It's great.
Well, we didn't know how interested people would be, because we knew that the hardcore fans would really like having all the deep secrets revealed and such. And so at the time, the major PDF release that we were looking at was the conspiracy book for Hunter.
Right.
Which came out, and the Forsaken Chronicler's Guide, which was being written at the time, and which came out as part works. They came out in 3 chunks, and so if you look at the book, you can see that it's kind of structured to have been released. You can, if you squint at it, you can see we would have introduced. We would have done the threshold, the process of becoming an art mage, and then gone join us next time for. But when the call came through to do it, one, it would come out as a single release. And 2, we had a smaller word count than we originally pitched for. So we really thought hard about it and really tried to compress as much in as we possibly could, and failed. Massively overran, but. The things that were added afterwards, gratis, the things that we just shoved in there because we felt that the book needed it. The last minute editions are some of the things that people have really responded to, and it's not quite as simple a thing as saying, a lot must have been cut out of it.
Right.
Pretty much, no ideas have been cut out of it, and everything's in there. I would have written about twice as many example spells, as we had, but I wouldn't have written all of them.
No.
Not all of the lists of spells where they're just described as 2-word things, as exercises for the reader in statting them out. That was always going to be the way. And the NPCs were never going to have stat blocks bigger than willpower, gnosis, which of their arcana is above 5, because for art mages that's really all that matters. So
Well, it is crammed and it's very dense, but I think that's a good thing. And as I said, it really does. It really is kind of unashamedly full on, and I think there's no point doing it half-assed. It's going to be a book about the top end of the system, rich, deep, esoteric, occult, literally. So I think it really fulfills its mandate in that regard. It's a great book.
Yeah.
Now, speaking as someone who still plays Mage the Ascension, and wanders into Mage the Awakening to loot and pillage and carry the spoils back off to my purple game, what do you think Imperial Mysteries has to offer players of Mage the Ascension?
Okay. Mage the Ascension has its own art mage book.
Well, yes. I'm going to talk about that in a minute.
Right, okay, we'll get on to that, will we? Okay. I think because most characters aren't involved in it, that's kind of paradoxical in itself. But because most characters aren't involved in it, the Ascension War in Mage the Awakening is quite. It's much more clearly. It's much more clearly stated.
Yes.
You are knowingly setting out to remake the universe in your to be the way that you want it to be. Not any of your fellow player characters, the way you want it to be, and so are all of your peers, and you have to decide what that means for yourself and for the rest of the universe. One of the things that I always used to muse on, occasionally out loud as kind of a koan to get people talking on forums, was Mage the Ascension is much better at handling awakenings, and Mage the Awakening is far better at handling ascensions. Just the way that the two settings are set up.
That's very true.
Where in Ascension, because you only discard your paradigm as you you only evolve beyond your paradigm as you shed foci, as you go up in arete. So it's your character is still very focused on who they were before they awakened, and the cultural practices that they were in before they awakened. While Ascension itself is kind of a hand wave, even in Masters of the Art.
Yes.
Mage the Awakening, your awakening is something that only about half of mages actually realise that they're experiencing at the time. And magic has a defined. This is what magic is. To it, but because the supernal goals, because the supernal realms are a goal, they're a thing which is unachievable by base mechanics. Obviously, if you tell a mage that something is unachievable, they will try to achieve it. Ascension, trying to escape the Gnostic prison universe, is a thing. It's the preoccupation of one of the orders, and trying to stop people from doing it is the preoccupation of the antagonists. And you can see how ascending matters to people in New Mage. And if you were playing a very high-end, a very high-powered game of Mage the Ascension, I'd maybe look at that about some of the Ascension lore that we have going on, and the concept that when you get that powerful, it's really only the 80 or so other people that are that powerful that you really have to worry about. The Ascension War becomes personal when you're playing Porthos.
Right.
So the Ascension War is a personal thing.
Well, Mage the Awakening's take on the Ascension War is one of the first things that I imported into my Mage the Ascension game. Because like you say, it is. Never mind that I have a personal interest in the whole kind of Gnostic prison idea anyway. Seeing something in Mage the Awakening that was, I can steal this wholesale and stick it right in, to the betterment of my Ascension game. So looking at Imperial Mysteries and seeing here are some hard and fast methods for looking at what Ascension might be like and how you might achieve it beyond the kind of hand wavery of Masters of the Art. Here are the Imperial practices and the omens and what have you. And on top of that, to kind of parallel with the system in Astral Realms, rules for kind of getting behind the wiring of the world to change it. I think they both would work really well in Ascension games. So yeah, Masters of the Art. Did you guys look at that at all for inspiration when writing your Imperial Mysteries, or for examples of what not to do?
I did. I don't know if Matt did.
Yeah.
They're the reason that we have a faction called the Exemplars.
Yeah.
Although Masters of the Art, in Old Mage, an Exemplar is what is roughly what in New Mage would be called a Sitter.
Yeah.
So, I did look at it. I actually liked Masters of the Art. Okay.
I think it has a lot going for it. It does have a lot going for it. This is true.
Yeah. Especially the Bodhisattva faction are quite. Malcolm wrote the Ententes in Imperial Mysteries, the factions. So, but when we were working out the book, I was certainly inspired by the Old Mage version of oracles, which were people who had nearly ascended but had refused to help other people to ascend.
Yeah.
So I knew that I wanted a faction that were like that, and we knew that we weren't ever actually going to show the oracles. We conversely knew that we were going to totally show the exarchs, but that's a matter of awakening lore. And the idea of the Sitter as there being a faction, Malcolm named them the Sitter. I can't remember what my original name for them was. It began with an E. But it wasn't Exemplars either. And I knew that there would be a faction who were just deeply into one arcana, like Old Mage had that. But the main thing for me was that Masters of the Art, because of the way that Old Mage described sphere levels.
Yeah.
Masters of the Art had to do the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th dot for 9 spheres with quite large chunks, and it took up most of what was not that thick a book.
Yeah.
In fact, if you get a pod version of Imperial Mysteries, a print-on-demand version of Imperial Mysteries, I bet it's not actually that much thinner than Masters of the Art. Side by side. So much time was spent on the sphere dot effect that it didn't really have much chance of explaining how art mages interacted with one another, which is why I decided when writing up the Imperial practices that I would follow the Tome of Mysteries route rather than the Mage Core Book route, where we didn't describe the individual arcana, because we'd get about halfway through the 6th dot effects before we ran out of room. But we'd describe just the
practices. Yeah. Cool.
And so, the fact that Mage the Awakening has practices saved our asses.
Yeah.
But I actually had a player achieve art mastery in Mage the Ascension back in the day.
Oh wow!
Yeah, he became an art master of space.
Fantastic.
If you've ever actually read the 6th dot of space, it's rather underwhelming.
Yeah, there's some odd discrepancies in power in those. Yeah.
Yeah. In that, I believe that the fundamental difference between it and Space 5 is that at Space 5 you can warp space so that you can make rooms bigger or smaller. You can modify distances. You can warp space. You can increase or decrease it, amplify it, or dampen it. And at Space 6 you can create space.
Oh, lovely.
The difference. I don't actually know what the difference is.
Something about crossing the gauntlet too. I seem to recall being in there.
Yeah, he spent all that, but you see, they had a shallowing and a chantry. The difference he'd spent all that XP on it, and in the end, I had to specifically bend the plot to introduce a problem that he could only solve with his art mastery, so that he would actually use it.
Yeah.
So that he would actually cast a spell with it.
Yeah.
And just the idea that you have become an art master, you've spent that much XP on getting a sphere at 6, and it kind of sucks. Please spend more XP and get that sphere at 7. So we didn't want to do that. We wanted beginning art mages to be even a beginning art mage should feel like a god.
Yeah. Well, when Horizon covered it, Horizon just said there are 6 dots, and the 6th one is your kind of hand wavy dot, and let's not bother with 7, 8, and 9, which is an interesting approach. What I liked about Masters of the Art actually was a lot of the factions or splats that were in it were actually mages who couldn't ascend anymore. And I thought that was an interesting approach to take. The whole kind of thing about ascension, and then in fact, most of you guys are going to fail by pursuing these things that got you there in the first place, which I thought was quite an interesting take on the subject. That was nice.
Yeah, you've become so powerful you can no longer achieve the wisdom necessary to ascend, which is kind of bound up in what ascension was being hinted at being in Old Mage. But in Mage the Awakening, knowledge is power, and power is yes, you can. One of the we have the system for Imperium, but we also have in Imperium Mysteries the fact that if you do manage the feat of getting an Arcana to 10 dots, and you somehow find the quintessence necessary for such a ridiculous spell, it will just ascend you.
Yeah.
You can do it by sheer focused study.
And then there's that little sidebar at the end about, there's these guys outside the Supernal too. Did we not tell you about them?
Yeah, that's because Malcolm wrote on Inferno.
Oh, okay. All right.
And, I think the Empyrean was. Have you read World of Darkness Inferno?
Not yet, but I think I need to if we're going to cover Infernalism at some point. Yeah.
World of Darkness Inferno strongly hints that the lower depths in Mage, that hell where demons come from, the Inferno, is part of the lower depths in Mage, and there are places in Imperial Mysteries where we kind of hint at that too. It goes slightly against my own vision of what the lower reaches should be like, but I rationalise it as they're being the lower depths are a very big place, and there's room for lots of different things down there. But one of the things that's mentioned offhand in Inferno is we have given you all these rules for playing humans who are possessed by demons. What about humans who are possessed by angels?
Yeah.
And it gets maybe a page, maybe half a page, just the idea of playing something called Empyrean, which is humans possessed by angels, and you just flip the game mechanics in Inferno, so you run off virtues instead of vices, that kind of thing. And just as demons in the New World of Darkness, they come from a unspecified Inferno, then angels would come from a unspecified Empyrean, which is an idea that's raised in Promethean. Where the Quashmalin come from the principle. They work for the principle, which is never ever defined.
Right, the principle gets a mention in Imperial Mysteries too, I think, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Specifically, the fact that mages, as in Promethean, Quashmalin are just enigmas. They're not from the ether, and there may be a higher reality above the supernal.
So what do you think is left for the Mage the Awakening line to cover? It's fleshed out many of its nooks and crannies. Is there any supplement that you think is still crying out to be written?
Well, see, I've been thinking about this lately with the response to Imperial Mysteries. I've been thinking about, getting the gang back together and doing it again, submitting another book. And so, obviously, I can't really say. I can't
cool.
Really, I can't really. Well, I can't give a detailed breakdown of what I think the next best Mage of the Awakening supplement will be, if I'm then going to email them with it in a couple of weeks' time, try to persuade them to pay me for it.
Yeah.
But looking through my core book, because everything in Mage is at least mentioned in the core book, some things with the very thinnest of detail, like the whole the whole mythology about the pentacle having a supernal template, so no matter what the seers do, they can't destroy the orders, is based on about half a sentence in the Banisher write-up in the core book. But the Mad, what's up with them?
Yeah.
And apostates, and I'd like. I think the game could use a book about magical tools, sacraments, artifacts, imbued items. A toys book. Maybe go into like free
Forged by Dragon's Fire or toy
like,
books kind of thing.
Cool. Technomancer's toy books for the new generation. Especially as Techne wasn't really gone into very much in the Free Council book.
Yeah. Okay, interesting.
But they're the ways that it could go, and then I don't know. I guess we'll stop doing the Shadows of books because
a crossover with Vampire the Requiem and Werewolf the Forsaken featuring Samuel Haight. No,
that'd be a good one.
Maybe not.
Hey, I just got Shadows of Mexico, and I opened it up, and it came up with Requiem like splat write-ups, and I was flipping through, and there's like nothing about werewolves or mages or anything. It's basically just a Requiem book.
Yes, and if you read the UK book, it's a werewolf book.
Yeah.
Huh.
So I've never been on a book that it's happened to, but sometimes books get the spine colour gets changed halfway through writing them. If you it's like Slasher. You can tell Slasher was originally a hunting supplement.
Yeah.
But it's a WOD core book. The only one that I know didn't happen that way is the Book of the Dead, which was definitely, as first conceived, that was a general WOD book. But it's obviously more useful for Geist than it is for.
It's a great book, that one.
Oh yeah.
Love it.
Okay. But I think Shadows of Mexico, it did kind of start as a vampire book, I suspect, just from looking at it, and Shadows of the UK, which is a brilliant book. Because for anything else, it has the wobbles in it.
Yeah.
This is true.
It also has one of the earliest examples of what Geist is, essentially, because it has the cemetery spirits, which are kind of like a forerunner.
What happens when a spirit eats a ghost, and you get a spirit ghost hybrid, which is actually, it's what Geist. I think Ghost of Sin Eaters even has to have a sidebar in it saying that they might be, but
cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to the purple briefly before I finish my Mage frothing. So how excited are you about the chance for a Mage the Ascension 20th Anniversary Edition? And what would you most like to see in such a book? And if you had the chance, what would you change about Mage the Ascension rules or a setting for M20?
Okay. Like Vampire, I honestly wouldn't change many rules.
Mhm.
I just wouldn't. I wouldn't change the setting either. I hope that if and when Mage 20 happens, that it looks at the traditions and the conventions in the higher detail on their paradigms that was in the revised era.
Yeah.
I think the Avatar Storm could be safely locked away as a 2-page spread towards the end of the book. So that it's there for the people like me who actually liked it, but its mere presence does not cause the death of the internet. I think it should definitely have the conventions in it, as much as the traditions. For all that they're deluded fools, they should, and above the deluded fools, jackbooted Nazis, they should have. They should be in there.
Disparates.
I honestly think the various crafts are better off left as they were in revised, where they're folded into some of the traditions, if only because I don't think there'd be room for them otherwise.
There were a lot.
There were an awful lot of them before they started getting absorbed. But mostly I think the Onyx Path is terribly exciting. I will kill a man to write a Mage the Ascension book, because before I was an Awakening writer, I was a huge Ascension fan.
Yeah.
I got the original softback of first edition, and I fell in love with the game all the way. I played it all the way through I ran it and ran it and ran it again, and then played it and then ran it and then ran it and then ran it, and then played it for the last time I was actually a player. We only stopped. We were playing Vampire the Requiem, but we were also still playing Mage the Ascension. We only stopped playing Mage the Ascension when Mage the Awakening came out. If only because we'd just finished Mage the Ascension. We wanted to play a different game. Yeah. I once, after university, I decided that we were running games over instant messenger over ICQ to keep in contact with our old gaming group, and I rashly declared that I will run a campaign of Mage the Ascension, which I shall call Decalogue, for it will run for 10 years precisely. It will be split into 10 seasons of 10 stories each, and we shall do this until we are all in our 30s. And I got midway through year 3. But it was awesome.
I did exactly the same thing, but it was 9, not 10.
Oh, well, the thing is, I'd already done the 9. I'd already done the 9 version. It was actually like 3 chronicles of 3 acts each.
Yeah.
I even modelled them thematically after the spheres.
Excellent.
I was that kind of a guy. But yeah, so I will fight man to write for it. But I think that
you said a minute ago it was kill, and now it's fight. I mean,
because I'll lose. Malcolm Shepard does martial arts, and there are an awful lot of luminaries who'll doubtless be jockeying for word space on M20. So I don't know if I have any hope of cramming in. So, as backup plans, I have 4 framing stories. I have thought up. I've been thinking about how I would write each of the 4 remaining convention books, just in case. Wow. And with the Onyx Path, I think the biggest excitement for me in the restarting of the classic World of Darkness is that I might actually get to work on a Mage the Ascension book, which I never ever thought I would ever be able to do.
That would be very special.
Yeah.
As long as we get it, that'll keep me happy. Okay, so
Well,
apart from... Sorry,
the
carry on.
convention books have been announced.
Yeah, I know.
Translation guide's been announced. So Mage the Ascension books, they are coming,
Yeah.
Somebody is going to have to take the poison chalice of writing Void Engineer Revised, the pro as Avatar Storm people or the anti-Avatar Storm people, killing them.
See, then that'll be you now.
Great.
Okay, so apart from Decalogue, what Mage Chronicle would you love to run or complete but haven't had the chance yet?
Mage Chronicle that I would love to run or complete. As regular readers of my actual playthreads will know, I have I fly to Gen Con every year. I choose to see it as I choose to delude myself into thinking that it's a business trip to meet people, hand out cards, and it maybe works. But one of the things that I traditionally do out there is run a game for people, and there were in my second chronicle new Mage Chronicle, a bunch of storyteller characters who were quite compelling and who were big fan favourites. And so I just thought, right, okay, I'm coming to the States. Quite a lot of you are coming to this convention. Okay, email me, sign up. I will run a game. You can play these. These are your favourite characters in the narrative of the Chronicle. They have all just gone off together to form their own cabal and do awesome things over the horizon. And so email me, sign up. We'll all meet up in the. In one of the hotels, and I'll run the game for you, and I'll even write it up and put it in the actual playthrough. And 5 wonderful people did.
Cool.
And then they did, and then they convinced another one of their number to join. So the next year, 6 wonderful people did, and we've carried on doing it. And I was building vaguely a story arc. Unfortunately, because Gen Con has chosen to be held to hold the show after the start of the American school year, for the next 2 or 3 years, not everybody is going to be able to make it. So that sequence of stories is missing its finale, and looks like it's always going to be missing its finale. So
that's a shame.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what I would love to do. I just really like the opportunity to
reschedule Gen Con.
Yeah, reschedule Gen Con to my liking.
Okay, we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. Well, thank you.
No problem.
That covers Mage for me in excruciating detail. So.
Excruciating detail.
Yeah.
You're not hanging on my words.
It's a good kind of excruciating.
Okay, well, that's good.
Chris, you have some vampire questions, I think, still.
Yeah, we'll do these ones quickly because obviously this is the Mage special episode then as well. Is that okay? Because obviously, so
like
David,
them.
you worked on Dance Macabre, which is obviously a big book of tweaks to the game,
Yes.
and it's a very big book of tweaks to the game because obviously Vampire is
Yes.
quite well padded out with all the Covenant books.
I like to think of Dance Macabre as you buy this, you sellotape it together with Requiem, and you have Requiem 2nd edition.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly good. I was looking back through it, and it's one of those books which sometimes, like my approach to picking up World of Darkness books, is sometimes I flick through and some books you need to read straight away to get all the bits out that you want to put into your game, and other ones you find the little bits that you immediately want, and the rest you go, oh, I'll look at it when I've got a bit more time. And so today came across the is it not Children of the Thorn? Is it? Going crazy, but the ones which there's the tenuous link with Changeling. So so again with Dance Macabre and with Vampire, you said you like Requiem a lot and more than Masquerade. So
yes.
What was your contribution to Dance Macabre, and again where those contributions originate in your own games?
My Vampire the Requiem Chronicle is one of the sample chronicles.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Which one?
Knights of Long Knives.
Oh,
okay.
Right.
That's how I run Requiem, as kind of pretty much as I described running Sears of the Throne game earlier. My Vampire the Masquerade game. The first World of Darkness book, the first White Wolf book I wrote for was Night Horrors Immortal Sinners. Okay. One of the characters in that is the Prince of Budapest.
Okay.
And it describes the Budapest setting. Okay. Take that Budapest setting from Immortal Sinners, stick it onto Night of Long Knives from Dance Macabre, and that was my Vampire the Requiem Chronicle.
So hold on, I'm just trying to remember. Night of Long Knives. Just if you
Night of Long Knives is the one where Night of Long Knives is the one where the player characters are the second tier guys.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ancillars. The one player character is the Mistress of Elysium. One player character is the Carthian Myrmidon. One's the sheriff. That kind of thing. It's a very small city with a very limited group of kindred in it, because it's one of the old. Dance Macabre says it's one of the old Hungary. It's one of the old European cities with a very small city centre. There's not enough room for a big US style Prince's Court, because in the game that I ran it was Budapest. And because of that, everybody is related to everybody else. I had a big branching family tree of all of the kindred. There were at most 2 lines of embrace per clan.
Yeah.
So everybody knew everybody else. It had a really strict prince, who is the guy who was written up in Immortal Sinners, who basically controlled the entire joint with an iron fist and made a lot of very draconian laws, which people really didn't like, but they couldn't get rid of him. And then something happened to get rid of him, and all of the elders who have disappeared. They've all gone into torpor.
Mm-hmm.
So the player characters have stepped up into the breach. The Carthian movement has taken over. The player characters are left with the younger the neonates, who they were oppressing under the old regime. Are now looking at them like they're thinking, well, if the elders have vanished, then the ancilla can damn well vanish too. The ancilla are all looking at one another, and old tensions are coming. Old tensions and hatreds are coming out. Everybody has been stuck with one another for many decades. Everyone hates. Everyone has a shit list containing at least 4 other people, and. It's just a pressure cooker which is going to explode.
Cool.
And it will all end in tears. And when I ran it, it all ended with white phosphorus.
The thing you were saying about having multiple lines of detailed, bloodlines of vampires of who's related to who. It's that I think is really important for vampire games to really get across the interconnectedness between characters and settings. So obviously antagonists are not just straw men that can just be set on fire and staked and killed and got rid of. There's repercussions and ripples to every action.
Yeah, that unbound that you just had to execute. That's the child of your own sire.
Yeah.
Nephew, if you will. And when I run Requiem, I always like to make the blood ties. The ability to sense the emotions of people that are related to you. I make that actually far stronger than it is in the game as presented, and being capable and being capable of going a lot further.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think I'll definitely give that one a read over, because obviously, as I said, I'm in the process of setting up a new gaming group, and I'm looking to run season 2 of my Vampire Requiem Manchester setting, where we've played the original Chronicle was a tier 1 type of game, and obviously the one remaining player character that I have with me, obviously my wife's character, is now her character survived through a whole load of election Carthian madness, where a prefect got killed, and of course what happens when a prefect gets killed? There's an election got called, and
Yes.
all that madness, and trying to fix the election and so forth. So the game's going to be going to a tier level 2 type gaming scenario, because of course it's the easiest way to set it up with her character leading a new group of players who are kind of riding on her character's coattails and trying to take advantage of someone's newly found power. So I'll definitely have a look at that. So also quickly, favourite Covenant? I'm guessing Carthians.
Ordo Dracul, actually.
Ah, okay, cool.
Yeah,
fair enough.
I just like the Ordo Dracul. I like the fact that Dracula isn't hidden away as a secondary clan that wasn't in the original core book.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
And
Count fucking Dracula.
Yeah.
I do like Count fucking Dracula. Who doesn't like Count fucking Dracula? Yeah, I like the fact that he's a historical figure in Vampire the Requiem. The whole embraced by God thing, he's totally a gangrel. But yeah. Sorry.
I was going to say, and your favourite faction that was introduced in Dance Macabre, so one of the newer ones. So obviously not one of the 5 Gonzo Insane ones, because they're based on the original 5. But any of the other extra ones that were added in?
I created 2 of them.
Okay, good. Which 2 of those then?
I created the Society of the Accord.
Okay.
Who are they're the Golconda cult who found a surprisingly popular with neonates way of managing the beast.
Yeah.
And who look from the outside, and in fact from most of the inside, they look like the guys from the start of Blade.
Brilliant. Yes. Again,
And,
that's another one I've noted to use. Yeah.
and the Harbingers, who are based on my deep and abiding love of the true Bruja.
Okay.
Great.
Specifically, the Harbingers are the heavily necromantic guys who they bleed their blood potency off onto other vampires who they have captured for the purpose. But if they screw it up, they do it by manipulating the energies which keep a vampire's body static and immune to time. And if you get a dramatic failure on the roll, then you take aggravated damage as your body starts to rot. Which is what happens if you fail a temporis roll. If you're for the same rationale. Yeah. I may have played a true Bruja at some point. So they're kind of the... I definitely had the true Black Hand in mind when I wrote the Harbingers.
We love Dirty Secrets of the Black Hand here.
Yeah. I liked Dirty Secrets of the Black Hand.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Best
I was
book
playing a
ever.
Sabbat Chronicle at the time, and my storyteller said, like, you really don't want to read this. Really, it's not just that it's. I know you're playing a Black Hand player, Dave, but you don't want to read this. And I read it, and I had my mind blown.
That's such a cool book.
And the last question on my vampire kind of list of things, because obviously, is how would you sell Requiem to people who just think it's a carbon copy of Masquerade and they just shouldn't bother? Obviously a difficult sell, but you say you prefer Requiem to Masquerade, so yeah.
Russell Bailey once said that Requiem is blood spattered on asphalt, which, after I figured out he meant tarmac,
Yes.
my favourite ways of describing it. Requiem is grittier, nastier, much less certain. Requiem as a game line has done a very good job of early Masquerade. Way back in the day, first edition and early second edition Masquerade had a real we don't know what's out there feel to it. You know, the Sabbat clans weren't in the core book. There was much more of a feel of players should not read all of the source books because you get turned into a vampire and you should focus on the struggle of your character to survive through the night, and you will experience. You'll come across strange and unknown things, and you'll have to deal with it in play. It will kind of spoil it if you know everything.
Yeah.
Certainly, all those city books for the second edition Vampire, they were kind of useless if you read them as a player. If you saw the organisation charts, then you'd spoilt it for yourself. And there's that real feel to it. And because Requiem is one of the more, rightly or wrongly, is one of the more toolkitty. In fact, it's probably the most toolkitty other than Hunter. New World game. It's kept that. The way the Fog of Eternity works.
I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's you get the if you read the Requiem clan books, you definitely get the feel that vampires are kind of groping their way around a big, scary, horrible world, which will bite your head off and spit the blood all over the floor if you make a wrong move, and Masquerade doesn't. Masquerade had that at the start, and then certainly by revised era Masquerade, it didn't really have that level of mystery to it, and Requiem does. It's the least. It has the narrowest worldview of all of the New World of Darkness games, which it turns into a strength. Plus, the books are really pretty, especially nowadays. Now that they're in colour.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if you could read the new clan books as works of art, and I will perform humiliating acts on live on the internet for the chance to do path books or similar artifact books for the other N1 games.
I think one book I would love to see redone from Masquerade into a kind of with a Requiem feel, because I think it was one of the best Masquerade books done simply, and I think that was simply because it was one of the last ones done, was Gilded Cage, because it was literally how do you run antagonists in a believable manner, so they're not just hopping
yeah.
around in their capes going, ha ha ha, I'm the big evil and I'm generation this and you can't beat me because you have to diagonalize me, which is impossible. It was more about how does their power base actually work and how, if you're a 500-year-old vampire, how do you get a bank card? And it's that type of thing, which I think, again, I don't have my copy since moving country, but it's I always constantly went back to referring to that when I was still ploughing through Requiem in its early days,
Yeah.
just to figure out how to get my setting built up, like who needs what to work and where all the ripples and dominoes would be if the players hit at the right points, just to make it feel like an organic setting that reacts to the players. The players could feel rather so they could actually be proactive rather than always reacting to some rather boring cardboard cutout villain. So I would love to see a book like that done for Requiem. That's just an idea.
Well, I don't. I really like working on Vampire because I think because I run Mage so very, very much, it's kind of I know the correct feeling for Mage. For when I work on Vampire, I have to sit down and really get myself into the mood of the game. So certainly for me, it has the books are the later Requiem books are just dripping with blood and viscera, and it's got a very strong theme to it, and I just love it.
I think that's all I have on Vampire, which leads
Okay.
to the last three here. Again, sort of similar questions, because of course you worked on Changeling. And in
I did.
particular, Dances in the Dusk?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So again, kind of like what type of Changeling games have you run, and how has that influenced your contribution to the Changeling line? And what type of books would you like to write for Changeling, or what do you think needs to be written for Changeling? And just generally why you like Changeling. 'Cause I
My
love
big
the game.
confession is that I've never run it,
Ooh. Okay.
or in fact played it.
Ah.
When Changeling came out, I had just finished running a people abducted by fairies game.
Okay.
So when Changeling came out, I knew that it was good. It is up there with the with late Requiem games for being bloody gorgeous. But it was totally the wrong time for my gaming group, so I never ran it. I always intended to come back to it and run it, but time makes fools of us all. And I've never run it.
Do you find it difficult writing for the game, not having played it?
My section of Dances in the Dusk was about incubi, who are the changelings call anything that they encounter in a mortal's dreams, which is attempting to alter that mortal's dreams for its own ends. They just call them all incubi.
Right.
And because of that, I had to give them all dream combat stats, but introduce as much mystery into what all these different things actually were as possible.
Because as a chapter goes, I was going to say, as a chapter goes with the dream section, I mean, the amount of back referencing to Mage, there's like massive amounts of like referencing to other Mage books, and that's because the whole dealing with dreamscapes is open to lots of crossover for really a lot of the World of Darkness. So.
Yeah, all the stuff about the Skyne and and Mordred and such was that was all Malcolm. I wrote some of the incubi, and and so I read and reread and reread the Dream Combat rules. Read the entire line so far, and just had to be really careful about it. Sometimes you don't get the chance to run a game before you write for it.
Yeah.
If if you're writing the core book for a game, you can't have played it before you write for it. So
That's true.
I had a great deal of fun. I had a good time writing Dances in the Dusk. I came onto it about a week after I'd finished Citizens of the Throne. It's one of my 2 pieces of gaming fiction that have been published in White Wolf books, because the chapter opening fictions appear to be getting less and less common. There are some bits in there that are mad ideas that I had. Some of them were requests, like what does somebody's daemon, which is from Mage, what does someone's daemon look like to a changeling? That was one of the things that we were told to include. And I did the Goblin Miners, who are after Dreamstones.
Awesome.
I did the Succubi, the Cambions. I did the sentient play that kills people. Kindly Stranger. That was a weird one. And the personal one was the Night Hags. The Night Hags, because because as a kid, you know the phenomenon of night hags. Sleep paralysis is it's the opposite of sleepwalking. It's the condition where your body doesn't unparalyze itself when you wake up, and being half asleep, so your brain is still in the state where it's interpreting anything as weird imagery, softened up from random parts of your subconscious. And the fact that you can't move, you experience it as a big crushing weight on your chest. So if it happens to you, you normally feel like there's something in the bed with you or sat on top of you. And so that's where you get like medieval illustrations of people with demons crouched on them, that kind of thing. So in Changeling, it's literally true. But as a child, I suffered from sleep paralysis, so I have experienced the night hag phenomenon.
Yeah. I think I'll be keeping that one. I don't know how happy my wife would be if I used that in a game. Sleep paralysis in Changeling. Yeah, the look of horror on her face at that idea.
Yeah. For me, I was absolutely horrified when it happened to me as a kid, until I realised that the way people, and it's one of the theories of alien abduction stories, because what you actually see is a dream. So it's just a random thing brought up from your subconscious, and I mentioned this. It's just a random thing brought up from your subconscious, which is why, as an 11-year-old, my night hag was the goblin from the AD&D 2nd edition Monsters Compendium. I figured out that it was a psychological thing, and not a demon.
I'll admit, I've had I think it was where I was staying with. I think it was in my last year, or was it first year of? It was either last year of degree or first year of PhD, and my night terror for that, I could visualize in front of me, looked extremely like Gollum from Lord of the Rings, and I was just like, and all I distinctly remember that my thoughts at that time was, I'm going to hit you, you bastard, if you don't get off me. And of course you're there, and then suddenly you do feel your hand clench. You're like, oh great, now I can actually move. And then
And that
of
breaks it.
course it's gone, and you can't. You realise what it was, but yeah. No, I really love Changeling as a game. So, and one of the things why I think it'll be interesting to use the bits that you've written for Changeling is because one of the bits in Changeling which I've hardly used because that core book is so jam packed is all the rules for dreams, because there's a massive amount in there, and there's a lot in Changeling to use in that game that, well, it's difficult to fit it all in.
Changeling's really jammed full.
It is.
And it's a very justifiably popular game, and it's getting, so much so that it's getting the third or fourth, if you look at it differently, historical game.
That's right, soon. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's getting the Victorian Lost, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm quite looking forward to that one. That's going to be really good fun.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Cool. Well, that covers all my questions, and I think we've asked a lot of questions.
Yeah.
There's Mike.
Yep. Giving Malcolm Shepard a run for his money.
I beat Malcolm at something.
I was just going to say, I think this is longer than Malcolm's, isn't it? Okay. It might well be. Well,
it might be.
Thank you for indulging us in our Mage geekdom there. It was incredibly enjoyable.
No, it's my pleasure. Fantastic. I could go on. I probably shouldn't, because it's nearly
Yes.
Oh man.
All right.
So,
Mike,
Mike,
there's another question coming, isn't there?
Oh yeah. Oh, that's an important one. All right, Dave. If you could be a household appliance, which would it be and why?
I'd be. I wish there was a funny story about this, but I'd just be the toaster. I totally would be the toaster. If my wife weren't, 3 hours of sleep, she'd be mocking me and saying that I was the toaster. It's just because I eat so much of it.
All right, that's good.
Outstanding.
Cool. Well, I think that's it for all of our questions. And as we move over to the closing of the show, Mark, you've got a bit of an announcement to make.
Yes, I do. So this is, or has been, my final episode of Darker Days. That's right, folks. I'm hanging up my black cloak and refreshing finger, and I'm calling it a day. Reasons are very, very brief. I've just recently been brought on board as senior writer for an independent computer games company. We're in pre-alpha phase. We've got funding to keep us going through this current period, but we're racing ahead to get more. And as anybody who's been involved in such a project knows, it's 24/7, no free time, no sleep, lots of coffee, lots of toast. So rather than flag at Darker Days, I decided now is a very good time to bow gracefully and step out of the limelight and leave the show in the capable hands of my esteemed co-hosts. So there you go. I will bid you my farewells. Mike and Chris, I want to say thanks to you guys. It's been excellent working with you both. You've been great hosts. Darker Days is in safe hands. I also want to say a special thanks to Vince, my original co-host. We had some great times there, buddy. Thanks again also to everyone at White Wolf, and especially to Eddie Webb for being so supportive to us. And a huge thanks to all of our guests, yourself, of course, Dave, for being so fantastic on the show. Finally, but most importantly, a huge thank you to all of our listeners and all the members of the Darker Days community, past and present. There's too many to call out individually. You guys keep the show alive, you help us grow, you keep us sharp, and make it all worthwhile. So thank you. It has been a blast. Right, that's it. I'm done. I'll be in my trailer.
Is this your moment of actual ascension? Are we going to finally...
Or is this just a threshold seeking?
This is going to be a weird popping noise, and that'll be it.
Great. Well, Mark, it's been an honor to learn from you as a listener, and it's been great to work with you as a fellow podcaster. So thank you very much for all your hard work and everything.
Thank you.
I was only going to say I can only, say the same things as Mike has just said. So yeah, it's been great.
Thank you very much, both of you. And if you have the patience for it, I'm sure I'll find time to send a Darkling or two your way sometime in the future when I have something magey to geek out about.
Yeah.
Great. All right, and with that, I think that's the end of the episode. So if you have any questions or feedback, send it to Mark. What's the email address?
darkadaysradio@gmail.com.
Outstanding. And check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/darkadaysradio. Darkadays Radio on Twitter as well. Dave, you have a website that you want to pimp?
No, not really. I've got my my hopelessly unupdated blog, but I wouldn't point people. I wouldn't really point people to that. Just keep playing the games and keep talking about them, because the fan community is the most important thing in keeping role playing alive.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. Yes.
Great. Well, I think that's it. And everyone, Dave, thank you very much for an outstanding interview. Mark, thanks for showing up for one last time. Chris,
My
thanks
pleasure.
for showing up so late.
Yes.
I mean, not late,
as
but
always.
staying up so late. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm staying up late too. It's not just him.
But I'm in the future. That's
Yes.
the difference.
Yes, you are.
1 hour in the future. All right. And everyone, farewell. That's it.
Take care,
All
folks.
right.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.